Good morning, everybody watching us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and listening to us in Clubhouse. It is a pleasure to have you with us again on this Wednesday morning, midweek on August the 28th. Today, I would like to once again introduce to you one of our guest speakers, Dr. Joe Hug. And you have already met him 3 times. We have had wonderful conversations about hidden champions in Japan, hidden gems here, about SMEs and startups in this beautiful country. So Dr. Joe Hug has been doing research into this field for quite a while now, and we're very grateful for his sharing some of his findings with us here on this podcast. So, Dr. Joe Hug, I'll call you Joe. So, for the ease of it, I would like to introduce one of our sponsors first before I give you the microphone and the screen. So please bear with me, and to everybody who is watching us, I would like to tell you, if you are thinking about buying or selling real estate or houses or homes here in Tokyo and Yokohama, or just renting homes in Yokohama, please be aware that Kanchu.com and James Howell are the people and the company that you need to contact. So they have been working with us for quite a while, with Tim and me, and we have known them as somebody we can trust. So they will be happy to work with you in either English or Japanese. So remember, Kanchu.com and James Howell. So, Dr. Joe Hug and Joe. So let's dive directly into the topic, because I think that we have quite a lot to talk about today, continuing the conversation about hidden champions in Japan. Without any further ado, let me give you the mic.
Well, thank you, Maya and Tim. As always, I wanted to bring today something special so that everybody can begin to see examples of what we've been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got 2 examples. One I'm just going to briefly talk about, but the other one is, we'll dive deep into. Before I begin, so typhoon is coming,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Maybe.
It's taking its time.
Yeah, it's kind of scary.
It is
The
good.
slow ones are the ones you got to watch out for.
Slow ones. As you may know, many years ago, I was in the military, and just before I retired, perhaps, I was in that Okinawa. I was stationed in Okinawa, and we had a super typhoon. Oh, typhoons come through Okinawa all the time, but we had a super typhoon, and I got a picture somewhere in my files of the eye of the typhoon was so big, the entire Okinawa island was inside the eye from a satellite picture. Yeah, it was pretty scary.
Pretty scary, yes.
Of course, there was a reason to go running, right?
Right, yeah. Well, thankfully, we were lucky last time with the latest typhoon, which didn't actually hit the main island, but who knows what happens with this one. And I think that, as they say, quiet waters run deep. So this typhoon has been taking its time forever to come. So hopefully, we're not going to experience much damage and destruction. So
let's hope so.
Yeah, hopefully it goes right through. So I mentioned running, and I'll tell you why I mentioned running. Going back to the typhoon story, is I used to belong to a running club. Believe it or not, I'm not in shape anymore, but loved exercising, and I loved running. I was constantly running in Okinawa. Just loved it. And I wonder, what type of activity do you do now or did in the past, Maya, Tim?
Oh, okay. For me, I go jogging, and I also go to gym. I resumed going to gym. Maybe 3 weeks ago, because I had I stopped. But I have been exercising very regularly since the age of 9 when I started playing volleyball. I
Oh
did
my.
that, yes, 5 or 6 times a week until I graduated from university. Then I came to Japan. I continued just with running and half marathons and 10-kilometer marathons. And now I'm back just to jogging and gym. That's all.
Wow.
Team, how
Okay.
about you? Yeah.
Well, when I lived in Hawaii, my wife and I would get up every morning. We would drive to the ocean. It was about a 20-minute drive. And we were in rural Hawaii. And there was this, we called it the hot pond, but it was called Ahala Nui. And it was a geothermally heated
Mm.
pool. And it was oceanside. So
Mhm.
it had this like little man-made barrier with a little gap in the middle where water could flow in and out, right? So there were fish in there. I would swim every morning for 40 minutes. And I taught myself how to swim in a way that how to relax in the water. So I could have swam for 2 hours because I learned how to, but it was really good. It's really good exercise, right? Well, I don't live there anymore. And it's now buried in 40 feet of lava. It was
Oh,
wiped out in the 2018 eruption. Well, I was still there. So now I've been doing push-ups since I turned 65. So I was doing 100 a day, 4 sets, but now I'm doing like super slow motion, and
mm.
I cut it in half, so I'm doing 50, but like one push-up takes like 10 seconds, and I'm
Wow.
holding it. Yeah. So I slowed down. I reduced the reps, and I also bought a chin. I mounted a chin-up bar, and so I do 25 super slow motion ones total. It might take me a couple sets, right?
Mm.
And I do chin ups, same thing, super slow motion. I just started this like a couple weeks ago. I do two on and a day off, but I do my legs every day, so I don't really have a day off. So two on, and then legs, and then two on legs, two on legs. So that's kind of my routine. And I walk up and down these super steep hills of Atami. So that's a good workout, like for your legs
Mm.
anyway. So that's kind of my thing now. So
Interesting. Wow. Thank you both for sharing. I feel bad now. I
don't
after
feel
exercise.
bad. Just
Listen.
move on just a little bit. You'll feel better, and
Yeah,
then you'll get rolling. Just do it
yeah,
at your
yeah.
pace.
I do
Took me a
walk a
while to
lot.
get. Yeah.
Mm.
Walking's great. Walking's
Yeah, yeah, it
fantastic.
is.
Yeah,
It's low impact, right?
yeah.
Yeah, low impact. Yeah. I also walk.
But this, by the way, this is not a fitness podcast. By the way, everybody, we're just shooting the you know what and
We're
having
just getting
fun.
there.
So we're
Well,
working our way in. Yeah.
Yes.
working our way. Well, the reason I mentioned it is because I wanted to know like what kind of sports you do because one of the companies I'm going to talk about is linked to sports.
Okay.
Oh.
A segue. Good.
Ah,
Mhm.
segue. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. But first, let me go ahead and give it today. We'll give it a title. Today's title is Wa Glass, and I
Oh,
believe
hey.
I have that first slide. Maybe we can show that.
Yeah, definitely.
There we
This
go.
one.
Wa Glass. Yeah.
All
Mm.
When I
right.
first heard it,
Harmony Glass.
yeah, I thought somebody was mispronounced. Mispronounced something, and I said, "Wa
Mhm.
Glass? What?" They had to explain it to me. It's a kanji. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
today we'll continue to dive into the world of the Japanese small medium sized enterprises, and of course we've come to know them here as hidden champions. Today in particular, I want to focus on the realm of glass, or specifically glassware. And
Mhm.
if you're a fan, any of you listeners, if you're a fan of all things Japan, or you're just curious about the Japanese SMEs that are operating and are relatively unknown, then you're in for a treat today.
All right.
Now, hidden champions. So really quick, hidden champions is particularly in the glass tableware industry are really fascinating. Not just because of what they do in their survival, but also because of what they produce. Right? They're quite
Right. Yes.
resilient. Yeah, yeah, they're
Mhm.
quite resilient, innovative. Believe it or not, And something, in my opinion, that startups or new tech companies should envy. So, with that, I've got the first question for my hosts. And see,
Okay.
first question of a quiz. See if you've been paying attention. How many hidden champion SMEs are estimated to be throughout Japan?
I
God,
think there were about what 52,000, 32,000.
Yeah, 5232, Tim.
I don't know. I'll split the difference. 40.
40. Uh,
I don't remember this shit.
well, according to some of the latest reports, 33,000 companies throughout Japan.
33,000.
Maya, you got it, kind of. Kind of.
Almost
She did.
there.
She said 32. Yeah, she said
One
32.
out of two ain't bad. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And most of these are over 100 years old, right?
Yeah.
And that is my point as to why tech companies
Yeah.
or traditional companies should envy them, because there really is no tech company that's been alive for 100 years. Not yet.
Right.
Hopefully,
Right. Not
you know,
yet. Exactly. Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
mean,
second,
and I was
yeah.
just going to say part of that equation is long term thinking and also adaptability.
God darn, Tim, you answered the question before you even heard it.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm
No, no,
sorry.
that's
My brain. Yeah. That's how
maybe
my brain works.
we're on the same
It's
wavelength.
telepathic. Yeah. Good. Good.
Yeah. I think I'm sorry. I just have to say that this morning, I woke up at 5 o'clock to to write my report, day four report for the Japanese management class at school, and I'm very much, very tightly wired now, to talk with you about what you have to tell us, Joe.
Your mind is on that paper.
Very much so, yes.
I
And
gotcha.
but yes, this adaptability that Tim mentioned, it's really one of the features that actually we talk a lot about, and I think that very few people understand why. Why? Because to be adaptable, you actually have to be agile. You have to be open to change, right? And everybody says that Japanese companies do not like change. So
Mm,
how do they adapt, right? So it sounds like controversy to a very high extent, but there is something there, and I hope that you help us understand this today.
yeah, I
Yeah.
I surely will. Yeah. Yeah. So the question was,
Yeah.
why are these 100-year companies so successful over such long periods of time? And as Tim said, it has a lot to do with adaptability and innovation, and really great leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A little bit about the human resource or the human capital topic
Right.
last episode. That has a lot to do with it. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Great. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce my first case study to you, which is not the main topic, but it kind of segues into the main topic. So let's go ahead and continue talking about hidden champions, which, for those of you who are listening for the first time, a hidden champion is a niche, or a company with a niche, and they have a large share of the marketplace, whether it's domestic here in Japan or even global sometimes.
Right.
And why they're called hidden champions is because, for the most part, they are not in the radar
Mm-hmm.
of most people. Like, are there other large companies that we hear about, right, all the time?
Yeah.
Really don't hear about these other companies.
Mm-hmm. If you don't mind me reminding people here also that you mentioned in one of our previous conversations that all those hidden champions, or a vast majority of them, is actually they are private companies. They haven't gone public, and so that's one of the reasons why they remain hidden. So, but of course, I believe that there are others as well. Anyway, just I wanted to remind people about this as well.
Thank you very much. That's right. For the most part, they're family owned. Um,
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to go IPO,
Right.
and they love being hidden.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The puppet master in the background that nobody sees has all the power anyway in Japan.
That's right.
Right. Yes.
So we started off our episode today talking about health, exercising, etc. So, first question to you, or next question to you is: have you ever heard of the company Shimano Incorporated?
Oh yes. You mean Shimano
You
is
might have.
yes, the bicycle company.
That's right.
No,
You have.
I have.
I've heard the name, but I didn't make the attachment to a bicycle
The
company.
attachment.
I've heard it.
Right.
It rings a bell. It rings a bell.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. They.
Well, Maya, you get the prize.
Because
Oh,
again, you're
yes.
winning this contest that we didn't know we were entering.
She's like, oh, I can't concentrate.
No, no. But yes, Shimano has been here for I think more than 100 years now, as you said, and they have gone through. I mean, they have basically what I know about the company, if you don't mind me sharing, is that they started with producing just certain parts for bicycles, and then they expanded to the whole bicycle, and from there, actually, they added. Uh, Gradually, very slowly, they added more core capabilities and expanded into the United States and the European markets. And so they're one of the leaders of the bicycle production industry worldwide, right? So, and I also know that they're very famous for their what's that, gearboxes as well. So it has a lot, to. Sorry, this is just a brief, you know, segue, I believe, to what you're going to talk about, Joe.
Gosh, that was the whole presentation. Time to go home.
I'm sorry. I,
to, to quote my Irish grandmother, we are stealing his thunder. That's what my grandma used to say. I didn't mean to steal your thunder.
I didn't
So,
mean that. I apologize for that.
No, no, no. You're
uh,
absolutely correct. And you know, Shimano, for those who are not in the bicycle kind of sport, then they don't know or never heard of it. But those who are kind of in sports or have purchased perhaps a bicycle, professional level bicycle, then they
Hmm.
would know the name. But they don't really know much about the company beyond that. They just know,
Right.
oh, there's a brand.
Hmm.
So a little background: it was founded by a 26-year-old. So for those of you who always keep saying Japanese don't take risks, not the case. Plenty of risk takers in Japan. When he was 26 years old, he started renting a space for 5 yen, um, in
good
a
deal.
kind of, yeah, in a ironworks uh, area of the neighborhood near where he lived. This was back in 1921, so the company is now 103 years old, and it's grown so large that it has a huge global presence, and it controls a whopping 70 to 80% of the global marketplace in bicycle gears and brakes.
Right.
Uh, Now, uh, unless you're in the cycling world or a cycling enthusiast, most of you really have not heard of them, right?
Hmm.
Another interesting fact about them is that they evolved over time. Maya did mention some part of it, but what they started out was they were originally stamping, forging, molding, and assembling general metalwork because
Hmm.
the area that they had rented, or he had rented, that's what they were doing. So he kind of was helping them out, right? Okay, I'll rent this little space and I'll help you out. And they just kind of gave him some work. Uh, and then slowly he started focusing on bike parts,
Hmm.
from one part to another part, and now can assemble an entire bicycle. And they're really, really high quality bicycles. If you've never had one, you know, you might want to go out and take a look at one. Their birthplace is Shuimano, uh, which is in Sakai City. And Sakai City was famous for some of the Japan's most precious and crafted samurai swords.
Oh,
So
right.
for centuries, it was the place to go for metalwork. Right, so that's
Right.
kind of the inspiration. Uh, okay, so that is kind of an introduction of a hidden champion, and now let's move forward into the main topic of today.
Hmm.
He's a hidden champion. So please go out and take a look at a Shimano bicycle if you have a chance.
Right. Yeah.
No, I just wanted to make just one observation that I think is interesting is they took this what generically applicable technology that
Mm,
Hmm.
mm,
could be done for different industries, and they did it because they had to get their
mm,
first leg up.
mm,
But then they focused it on a
Hmm.
niche,
mm,
right? And
Yeah.
they did it during the Roaring Twenties, which Japan was doing quite well historically during those years until the stock market crashed, right?
mm,
Which means they also survived that, which
They
is
do.
quite amazing to me
mm.
Hmm.
because they were only what 8 years old, 6 years old. Like they were a new company and they got hit with this. So that anyway, that's just an observation I thought was
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
maybe
yeah.
worth noting.
Absolutely. Another observation you may have noticed is that um, they were not in a large metropolitan city,
Right.
and that
Good
that is
point.
something that
Good
a lot
point.
of hidden champions have in common, and still have in common
Uh,
now.
Interesting.
A lot
Yeah.
of them are outside the city. A lot,
Hmm.
many of them. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
another reason they're still hidden is even if people knew their name, they wouldn't know where it is. Right? Like, oh,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
where's
good.
their large
Yeah.
building?
Yeah.
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 What I find also fascinating, to your point, Joe, about those hidden champions being in local, sometimes rural areas, sometimes urban areas, but still local, is that it probably has something to do with that culture, of the rural areas. Because when you have a rural community or a local community, you basically you feel the peer pressure of the community there to perform well, because a lot of the members of that community are your employees, right?
Mm,
So you cannot
mm,
let them down. You cannot let them go. So your focus should be on how you preserve their jobs and how you make those employees and their families happy and willing to work for you too, which is sometimes which we don't always realize, but businesses are to a very large part actually shaped, or their cultures are shaped by the culture of their environment, and that
mm.
is the immediate environment. It could be physical, it could be cultural, or probably in both cases. I mean, in any case, it's both.
And
So.
it dictates priorities
Mhm.
and trade-offs,
Mm,
Right.
right?
mm, mm,
Yeah.
So an example would be you're going to trade off short-term profits for a long-term sustainability. You're going to and that might include not laying people off when times are tough. I'm not saying good or bad. I'm just saying that's in their mind.
Mhm.
They're prioritizing the long-term, the group cohesion over what a few people might get short-term. So, and that's coming from the culture,
mm,
right?
mm, mm, mm.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, yeah, all great points, and I think these are things that startups should consider.
Mhm.
Um,
yeah.
you know, a lot of startups go to the big cities, and okay, that's where I'm going to do it, and they're overlooking the possibility of working with smaller towns
Mhm.
who are probably willing to invest in you. Um, that's what that's what other programs have found that are successful is that they can do internships in small towns where the small town says, "Look, we've got this 10 bedroom house for you available rent free." You know,
If you,
uh, everybody gets to know you. They, any emergency, they're there for you. Um, there's a comfort level that is different than being in a city where you're just a number, and everybody's fighting for the same piece of bread.
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
and another thing that may or may not have something to do with it, but I feel like Japanese organizations, even the mid ones, are pretty good at taking what they think is a blank sheet of paper, not necessarily somebody who specialized in any technical area, and pulling them into the company and through the culture, molding them
Mm.
to learn. And I think being in the country, you don't have access to what some people would consider the elite people. Um, but I saw the same when they came to America and they set up shop in these small towns, and they had the same belief in the local people. We can take these farmers who are, quote, uneducated. They're smart, but they're, uneducated. They can fix anything,
Mm.
and we can fit them into our. And now they didn't know how to do that. They didn't have the technique or the know-how, but that was their belief going into it, which is part of the reason I think why they did choose to go out there. Plus, tax breaks and things like that. So I think
Right.
maybe some of that allows them to function well because they're kind of equipped to bring in these people and mold them into the company image. Is that
Mm-hmm.
is that relevant? Do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Are we at the halfway point, Mike?
Yes, we are. My alarm just went off. We're 2 minutes away. It's a 2 minute warning, so we can do it now, Maya, if you'd like.
Yes, I would
Sure.
love to. Yes, to say
Okay.
yes, I would love to say thank you to our other sponsor, Houze Inc. and Hana Urushisawa Howell. So, Houze Inc. also works in the field of real estate, but they do home design and commercial commercial property building and reconstruction and construction as well. So, if you are thinking about your next project in this field, please contact Hana Urushizawa Howell on LinkedIn and follow Houze Inc. So they have a website, and you can also talk with them in English without worrying about the level of your Japanese there. Thank you, Tim, for that. Yes.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. So now for the main event,
For the main
and I guess
event.
we can show slide two.
Yes. Here we go.
Okay. So today's main event is going to be on Hirota Glass, which is in Kinshicho. I hope I pronounced it right and spelled it right. um, what they do, as I mentioned, Wa Glass is this concept of blending traditional Japanese aesthetics with modern glassware looks. This is a kind of a strategic shift from their conventional product of how they made things, like wine glasses, into culturally significant items such as sake cups, which has allowed the company to differentiate itself from both domestic and international markets. The concept, of course, merges these traditional aesthetics, and what they do is they put in like subtle colors, minimalist design. The cups and other glassware that they make are inspired by a kind of a nature, uh,
Sure.
Japanese nature art form. So
Yeah.
they incorporate things like cherry blossom patterns, asymmetrical shapes that are all reminiscent of what we have come to know as wabi or sabi philosophy. These
Right.
kind of pictures, they evoke a traditional Japanese craft of pottery and textiles as well. So it's not about the wa glass itself. It's not about just the manufacturing process, but it's all about also the tradition, the hand crafting of it. None is made by machine; it's all handmade. And this, of course, allows the artisans who work with the glass to to gain these skills over time and become really excellent artisans. So my question to you both is, um, what do you think about this blend of old style Japanese manufacturing of glass into this new style of the colors and the symbolism and the Japaneseness? How does it contribute, you think, to the company's success, but also to Japan's success?
Well, if I may start, I think that this
Sure.
is one of the, yes, because when people come to Japan, they almost immediately realize that Japan is really an eclectic mix, of modernity and tradition. And this is such a common place to say, such a, I mean, a cliche to say, but it's so very true. And what I actually think when I saw, the picture you shared with us a little bit earlier is that this is the way how I mean the way of transferring the traditional aesthetics into into what's that this modern age, and also helping the younger generations accept them, because you infuse some of the modernity into it while you still use the old processes, the traditional way of making those glasses and the glassware. So I think that this is a very, very good example of how you can actually go forward without changing drastically, but incorporating in your processes that gradual change, and how can I put it, of modernizing and driving, well, or maybe transferring tradition from the past to the current times.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, Tim.
Well, it's funny because one of the first books on Japan that I read was back in the 70s, and it was Reischauer's Tradition and Transformation. And the
Love
Oh,
Rice
theme,
Hour.
I mean, it was packed with history. It was dry, but if you were motivated to learn about Japan, it opened my mind. And that was always his theme in most of his books, because I read like three of them, I think. Um, there's this, they rely on the tradition, but they tap into that and they apply it to, transforming and adapting. I mean, that was kind of the overarching theme of his book. So that was like my first introduction to Japan before I really knew anything. And as I was listening to you talk about this, I I recall the words of my professor in college, Stuart Picken, and he said to me once over a beer, he said, Westerners worship a deity. He said the Japanese, they worship beauty. They
Mm,
worship beauty, and it's embodied by nature. So, I mean, they worship nature too, in a sense, right? And I feel like that's another way of saying they put a premium, high value on art and on beauty.
mm-hmm,
And therefore, they really appreciate, I think more than my countrymen, not everybody, there's a bell curve, but they really appreciate craftsmanship. Not only is it appreciated, it's expected. Like there's this bare minimum of quality. Like, don't tell me about your quality. I assume it's going to be quality. What else do you got in
right.
addition to that quality, right?
Mm,
And I feel like they're tapping into something really deep, wabi sabi. I mean, even the Japanese probably couldn't explain why they like it, but it's
mm,
so baked into their culture and their ethos and their way of thinking. And so this adding value through beautification
mm-hmm.
to me is it's almost hard to like put a value on
yeah.
Yeah.
because it'll slip through your fingers when you try to define it. So
Mhm.
um so that's just kind of my listening to you, my observations for what it's
And
worth.
if
Yeah, yeah.
I may, so if you don't mind me adding a little bit, because Tim, from what you just said, another thought, popped up in my head, but it's like thinking about history, right? The history of Japan. And when I compare it to the history of my native country, Bulgaria, so there is something different here. I mean, Japan, as an island country, it has never been invaded um,
Right.
external forces or other nations. So
Right.
we have never gone through, the suffering of being forced to accept different
Colonize. Right, right, right. Right,
religious beliefs
exactly.
or aesthetics, or even cultural values or whatever. So it has developed in itself, by itself. And then for this reason, I also think that because of, that, what can I say, that respect for others, for your peers, for your bosses and the customers as well. When you are in business, your customers, you respect them, and your employees, because they are the basis of your business. So basically, I can see, in this example of, Hirota Glass, somehow hidden deep down is the respect, for their customers, for the tradition there as well. And so they're trying once again, to develop this aesthetic. In a sense, it is new, right? But it is driven once again by the tastes and the expectations of the current generations, of the current customers they have. So I don't
Yeah.
know whether it makes any sense, but I can see that deep down, somewhere, this really is playing a role and driving, that business too.
And I would just very quickly, even in the automotive industry, we made under the hood electrical components. The American customers, if there was this surface defect called splay. Functionally, it was fine, but it didn't look nice. GM would accept it as long as the part was functional because very few people look under the hood, right? Not
Mhm.
Japan. Even if that splay was in a place that nobody could see, they would reject it, right? So their beauty standards were higher even in an injection molding, insert molding industry as well. So it's just interesting how this manifests, right? And by the way, Steve Jobs was that way because he was influenced from Japan. So it's
Mhm.
Mm,
just a little, yeah, yeah.
interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, both of you. I completely agree. And uh, the evolution of these SMEs and why they stay in in the marketplace for such a long time is because they're constantly
Relevant.
innovating, they're constantly changing and adjusting and whatnot, but they keep a core um, understanding of who they are and what their mission is, and so they keep that Japanese cultural heritage and still listen to their customers, specifically overseas, to the modern consumer requests or demands, and then they kind of inject that and achieve new things, and typically carve out a new niche, or they further carve out the niche that they're in already. Uh, and this is very important because there's a study by Mordor Intelligence where they reported that the glassware industry and the glassware marketplace has a growth rate, a compound annual growth rate of 3.2%, and that's forecasted to continue going up. Now, uh, the demand for eco-friendly uh, ware like wood or glass is becoming a more mainstream focus because people are beginning to see that it makes more sense to have something that is friendly yet visually appealing, you know, and so that's why I believe that companies like Hirota Glass is going to continue to do well. Now, what's really interesting is, and here's a fun quiz question to both: how many employees do you think they have?
I I would venture maybe between 10 and 20.
Okay,
Tim?
I was going to say 50.
50. Oh, okay, eight, eight
Oh,
employees.
okay.
That's
Eh,
amazing.
Maya is
Well,
really good today.
Maya's like on it, you know?
Almost there. Not always exactly, to the point, but kind of close.
Yeah.
Close enough,
So
closer than me. It's. Oh,
yeah, she's killing us. She's killing us.
she.
Yeah, they have 8 employees. Some occasional part timers will come in and help when there's peak hours or peak seasons. But again, they do have a strong market share uh,
Mm,
in the area and domestically as well. But they're really small, and it's not unlike a startup, right?
right.
Startups are
Yeah.
typically small,
Mm,
and it isn't until they go IPO or such that they kind of explode. But
yeah.
there is something to be said in having the right team,
Yeah.
where everybody is responsible for everybody, and everybody
Hmm.
brings something to the table, you know.
Yeah.
So we know that small companies like these suffer occasionally uh, during the pandemic, right? A lot of these
Yeah.
small
Mm.
SMEs took a huge hit. Um, and then, they have, once again, they have to adapt and say, okay, uh, customers are not coming in. There's no, foot traction. What can we do? And so they, once again, they innovate and they come up with new ways of selling. So this company in particular started selling online. There you
Oh,
go, right? So there is acceptance of digital transformation. They know that it's necessary. They know what is out there, what are the options. So they do get into that, and that's how again they gain more uh, word of
Yeah.
mouth and are able to uh, showcase their products abroad. Um, the Ministry of Education, education. Oh, what am I thinking about? The Ministry of Economic Trade and Industry, METI.
yeah.
I was thinking of education. Came up with this term called connected industries,
Oh,
and so
oh,
what they're trying to do, and I believe that is the last slide on today.
yes.
And what they're trying to do is promote
Oh, sorry.
things that are ease. Yeah, there we go. Connected industries. That's the term they came up with. So Meti and Jetro both are trying to support this type of these types of industries and small hidden champions as a way to showcase, hey, look, this is what we have here in Japan. If you come to visit, please take advantage of your time here in Japan and visit these companies, see the beauty of their products, and if you're interested, you know, let us know where we could start selling it abroad as well. So there is a promotion interest by the Japanese government to help these SMEs. And so the future, looking ahead to the future, it's looking really, really good. And we know that because a lot of guests are coming to Japan for many
Mm,
reasons. Not It's no longer just one thing. Like let's say in the 80s and 90s, it used to be electronics, right? Oh, I want
yeah.
Right.
electronic
Right.
parts.
Right. And
A little bit
manufacturing.
later
Right.
on, it was video games, and now it's so many things. So
Yeah.
the future is looking really good, um, and I would like companies like this to showcase them in the future with you and show you some of the companies we visited. Uh, by the way, this company in its really small size has doubled their um, what do you call it? Has doubled their gross profit margin
Oh, wow.
within the last 10 years. Yeah,
What
within the
What are
last
their annual sales?
at the present is 200 million yen,
200 million yen.
right? Which is
That's the sales.
that's in
Okay.
sales, right?
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Well, for an eight-member company, it's not bad
That's
at
pretty
all.
good. Yeah. Nothing to sneeze at.
Mm-hmm.
No, no,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. In a tough economy that they had to go through uh, last 4 years of coronavirus, so they are expected to do much better now with with the pandemic being kind of over, and then people finding that coming to Japan is affordable.
Right.
And they are located uh, about a 3 to 5 minute walk from Kinshisho Station.
Okay.
So
So,
if you're interested, you can visit them. They're in a corner of a street, and it's so small you might miss it. You know, but they have a building that is, I believe, 3 or 4 floors that they 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 own. But if you go to their website, you can see the front, what it looks like, so that you can keep an eye out for it. And they have a map, and it's in English for those of you who cannot read kanji or Japanese writing. It is in English. I really recommend it. I've purchased quite a few items from there, and they're really affordable.
mhm,
And they have this small section near the entrance where they have discount glassware. And the reason they're discount is because like it might have like a one tiny little bubble.
oh,
Uh,
Gotcha. Yeah.
you're like, where's the bubble?
The NG. Yeah, see, they're so strict.
They
GM would
are
have accepted it.
yes.
like they scrutinize their glassware
Yeah.
Mhm.
um, very well. So if it's not perfect, they won't sell it.
Right.
And it's not
So Joe, quick question. So
sure.
are these produced by artisans and craftsmen, or is it a combination of manufacturing fused with that craftsman mentality? Like, how would you describe their production method?
Yeah, I would say it's mostly craftsmen, and then some of the
Okay,
finishing touches would be, yeah, more high tech finishing
gotcha.
touches.
Right.
But
Yeah.
mostly the crafts people make that. You know.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's it's like they always bring the craftsman mentality to that
Yeah.
monozukuri. Even in mass production, there's still that craftsman DNA that drives them. So I find that really interesting. But
I,
they're guitar makers, by the way.
right.
Takamine.
Oh.
It's this hybrid. They got a video online. This hybrid between mass production and then they got artisans in there as well at certain
Mhm.
stages, right? So it feels like it was handmade, but it's not exactly. So I find that interesting as an ex-manufacturing guy.
Yeah, and something that I remember several years ago, I visited Ishikawa, and you know that the area is famous for the gold, the gilt, what the gold leaf, right? And we watched actually a documentary about how the craftsmen acquire their skills, and like everything else, you have to go through very hard training. It takes years and years, a lot of sweat, a lot of this and that. But at the end of the day, while I was watching that documentary, I thought, well, this is a craft. You have to be a craftsman. But at the end of the day, by applying your craftsmanship, you create art. So this is a concept that I think back home, at least in Bulgaria, we do not have, because craftsmen are craftsmen and artists are artists.
Mm,
And here in Japan, there is a fusion of this.
Yeah.
You cannot,
Yeah.
yeah, you cannot be an artist here if you're not a good craftsman.
mm, mm,
So, and that revelation was something so interesting to me because it's like, wow, in order to become an artist, you have to go through all that very hard training. And,
Yeah.
you know, back home we think, okay, even a 20-year-old can be an artist. And it's true. I mean, if they have, their own style, their own ideas and everything, that's true too. But not here in Japan, not in this culture.
mm.
So, and then there is once again the fusion of craftsmanship and then artistry and technology.
I feel like art is in everything here.
Mm.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like it's in no matter where you look, there's some art involved. And I like that. But you know, so
Yeah. I was
interesting.
gonna say too is there's always a hidden aspect also to the art, or the craft that they put into things. Uh, when I it's Let's talk about the glass, for example. When you look, if you could show the picture of the glassware, um, that third slide.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you're just
Here we
looking at the
go.
picture, you're thinking, oh wow, okay, yeah, yeah, it looks nice. You know, a little bit of whiteness I can see on there. Okay, yeah, it looks appealing, right? But then when you fill it with sake, or you fill it with whatever, and then you go to drink, you will be pleasantly surprised that there is texture to the outside where you feel it, and you feel that color different,
Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
or at the very bottom of that cup, if it has a big bottom, the bottom is large enough where you can see, there is a pattern. There's either like a sakura petal,
Right. Yeah.
or or some other shape that has been crafted into the bottom. So when you go to drink, you see it, and that's the beauty of it. Like, you don't expect it, and then suddenly it's there, and you're like, wow, that's pretty cool, And yeah, a lot of those cups are some of the high sellers, because
Right.
they've got those hidden aspects to them. They're really beautiful. So, if for nothing else, please go check them out, and then I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
So the
okay.
Japanese spirit is there in every single piece of
Infused.
glassware there. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Joe, we actually have a couple of comments here, on
Great.
link, and one of them is from Shinjin Wolf,
Oh,
and he
great.
writes, "Yes, outside of Japan, there is a concept of planned obsolescence, which unfortunately keeps consumers buying. So, what are your thoughts about this?" And I think that Tim will also have, an opinion on this. How do you see this difference, in the mindset?
Yeah, I think from the Western point of view, we have been taught for many years, maybe going back to the 50s, if you will, during the explosion of consumerism. Because prior to that, I remember when I was really young, my grandparents had what's called a bread box.
Oh, yes, yes. Yeah,
So you open your bread box, and you put put your bread, and then
yeah,
you try to keep it fresh or as long as you can. So you would appreciate what you purchased. But with consumerism, with the explosion and the discovery of plastics and other things, we began to not care about the looks, but rather the ease of something, right? Oh, it's
yeah,
easy, buy it, throw it away, buy another one. And so I think crafts like this, it's trying to get us back to appreciating and keeping items for long term rather than throwing them away. Uh, yeah,
right.
I
I don't know.
think for looking at it through a cultural lens, I
Sure.
feel like that if you come from a culture with very little resources, then you have to conserve and use as best you can what is given to you by the environment around you. And I know Japan has gotten a little spoiled over the years, but it's still not gone. There's still the concept of motai nai. There's still the concept of, looking at items and things as gods or spirits, right? Well, when you don't have a lot of resources, you have to value that almost like a deity in a way, to kind of exaggerate the point. And I also think Japan has their own version of planned obsolescence. It's not
Yeah,
necessarily embedded in the quality, it's embedded in things like the shaken system, where every 2 years you gotta bring your car in, and when it's 10 years old, you got to do it every year, and it's just cheaper to get rid of the old car and to get your new car. So it keeps the auto industry fed through
Yeah,
this, through these systems. And I benefited as a military guy because we didn't have to do the shot cannon. I could go off to a junkyard and buy a really good car for Goman yen that ran really well. So I benefited from that as an ex-service guy, right? I think there's obsolescence in tied to beauty, fashion.
fashion.
Okay, yeah, these clothes still are good, but look at the new fashion. You got to move on to this now. This is the new beauty standard, right? So, and design, same thing. New model designs. You're tempting them. So
Right.
maybe it's not planned obsolescence in the sense of quality falling apart, but there's still an element there. Do you
Yes,
guys
yeah.
agree or disagree?
Oh no, I agree, and it's the same with home electrical appliances. I have been told, by shop assistants that basically the lifespan of a laundry machine is 8 years, and after that, it breaks, and if you want to fix it, you have to fix it every year or every 2 years, and then it's better to buy a new one. It's the same with refrigerators, 8 years.
Yeah.
Yes, I know for sure that I have heard this from people in the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, that this has been actually a way to keep the economy running and the economy growing during the bubble economy, right? The bubble period. So it is there. It's, I guess that, the global competition for growth, economic growth, has had its toll on the Japanese.
Yeah, we have to very quickly define planned obsolescence because I think there might be some misunderstandings among some
Right.
of our listeners. So, and maybe Joe, maybe you can define it better. I'm saying you basically the image was you design something so in a certain amount of time it falls apart, so it doesn't work, and you got to buy a new one. That was kind of my oversimplified definition. You got a better one, Joe? And by the way, I
No,
got a bug out at 9, so apologies.
Okay. Right.
that's about right. Yeah.
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 Okay.
Okay. Well, so yeah, it's almost 1 hour since we started, and it's almost 9 o'clock. This is the time when we let everybody go about their day.
I
So
enjoyed it. It was a fun discussion. I hope you come back again soon. Let's keep it
Thank
going.
you. I'll
yes,
bring a totally different company.
yes, I
Oh,
cannot.
good, good, good,
That
good. Yeah.
that's wonderful.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yes. But Joe, thank you so very much for today and for letting us know about Shimano and also the Hirota glass and Wa glass and connected industries, because these are important companies, important knowledge, important concepts, and especially for startups, as you said, there is so much for startups to learn from these hidden champions in Japan. That
So, and apologies. I gotta go. My
yes,
little boss, my granddaughter, is coming to town, so I have to go pick her up. And so, but
yes,
thank you. I had a lot of fun,
yes.
and thank you everybody for listening today. Appreciate it.
Thank
Have
you.
fun. Have
All
fun.
right. Later.
Yes. Okay, and
Bye
give a
bye.
kiss to Remy-chan.
I
Bye.
will do that. Bye bye.
Bye. Okay, so Joe, thank you once again, and to everybody who stayed with us, Deborah and Hiroko-san, and also Shinjin, and everybody who didn't write a comment but was there. Thanks for being with us. We'll continue this conversation again, and in the meantime, I also once again want to say thank you very much to our sponsors. So they are Kanachu.com, James Howell, and also Houze Inc. with Hannah. The description, well, you'll find their contact details in the description of the video on YouTube. So thank you very much for this to the sponsors and to everybody who is watching us. Joe, would you like to say a few words in conclusion so that
Yeah, thank you for those of you who are, again, interested in things Japan, but also specifically on the world of SMEs. It's something that I think it's good for the economy to discover these SMEs, but it's also a way to appreciate a new new version of Japan, right? Because everybody's only focusing on for example, the the egg sandwich at the convenience store, right? But Japan
Right.
is much more than an egg sandwich at a convenience store.
Yes, indeed. Well, great. And once again, we'll continue these conversations. Thanks a lot to everybody and see you next time. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.